Have you ever felt that nagging frustration, knowing there's this mountain of information you should understand,
Yeah.
but you just wish there was, a clear, concise shortcut to get right to the core of it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely common feeling, isn't it? We all crave that aha moment.
Exactly. Without drowning in like endless articles. But what if this whole idea of a shortcut, of finding a more natural, maybe effortless way, what if that extended to something as fundamental as your eyesight?
Hmm. Interesting thought.
Yeah. What if improving your vision didn't necessarily mean, the usual suspects, corrective lenses or surgery, but something totally different?
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Today, we are stepping into a truly surprising and, let's be honest, for some, a pretty radical way of thinking about how our eyes actually function.
Hmm.
We're going to plunge into the world of perfect sight without glasses
Hmm.
and the intriguing Bates method. It's often referred to as natural eyesight improvement.
Right. Championed by ophthalmologist William Horatio Bates.
Precisely. And our deep dive today is built directly from his original unedited works. We're talking articles from his Better Eyesight magazine and other related publications, mostly from the early 1900s up to the 1930s. So straight from the source.
What's truly fascinating here, and what we'll really explore in depth, is how fundamentally this whole approach challenges the prevailing medical consensus. I mean, really challenges it.
Yeah.
Bates suggests that clarity of vision is, intricately linked to a relaxed state, not just of the eyes, but of the mind and body, too.
So our mission today is really to help you, our listener, kind of extract the core principles, understand the controversial claims, and get a grip on the practical applications of this Bates method.
Exactly. By going straight to these original sources, the aim is to give you a clear grasp of its essence, its compelling history, and its unique techniques.
Right. So you can decide its relevance for your own understanding of vision and maybe holistic well-being in general.
Yeah.
So let's kick off with the foundational philosophy of the Bates method. At its very heart, Dr. Bates had this incredibly simple yet pretty radical axiom that just runs through all his work.
Which is?
Effort always lowers vision. Rest always improves it. Now, that might sound almost too simple, right?
It does, yeah. Or even counterintuitive, maybe. In a world that often demands more effort, more straining for everything.
Exactly. But the source material makes it really clear this isn't just about like physical rest for your eyes. It's deeply, deeply intertwined with mental relaxation.
Precisely. Dr. Bates posits that imperfect sight isn't some inherent, irreversible defect in the eye's structure, like we often think.
Yeah.
Instead, he sees it as a symptom of strain. And this strain, he argues, isn't just limited to the muscles around the eye itself. Crucially, it originates, he says, in the mind.
So the mind is the starting point.
Yeah. He views vision as a function of the entire visual system. The mind, the eyes, the body, all working together in consult.
Right.
So if the mind is strained, the eyes will inevitably follow suit. They tighten up, lose their natural fluid function.
Right.
The primary goal then becomes absolutely paramount. Achieve relaxation of the mind. And that naturally leads to relaxation of the eyes and subsequently, he claims, to clear vision.
Which is a completely different approach than, say, corrective lenses, just forcing the eye to see clearly, whether it's relaxed or not.
Exactly. It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
That's a really powerful idea, I think, especially because it links something as, physical as vision directly to our mental state. And the source gives a really vivid way to illustrate this mind-eye connection.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you intentionally dwell on something disagreeable, something upsetting, or if you really try hard to stare intently, rigidly at an object, your vision is said to invariably lower. It might get blurry, or maybe letters on an eye chart might even seem to disappear. But then if you close your eyes, just take a moment, think of something pleasant, something happy, and then open them again. Your vision reportedly improves. Maybe just temporarily, but it improves.
Right. It really highlights that direct interplay he's talking about.
Totally. And the source even points out a subtle physical symptom of this strain, that involuntary twitching of the eyelids some people get.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Dr. Bates claims that if the period of rest is long enough, even that visible sign of tension can be corrected. It just shows how deep the connection goes.
So this foundational principle that strain degrades vision and relaxation restores it, that really forms the radical departure from typical optical solutions.
Definitely.
And it leads us directly into Dr. Bates' incredibly strong and therefore, highly controversial critique of conventional eye care. He made assertions that fundamentally challenged the established norms of his time. I mean, really shook things up.
And these claims are not subtle, are they? They're quite jarring, really, for anyone accustomed to modern eye care. The source material states it pretty unequivocally. Glasses and contact lenses are detrimental.
Detrimental. That's strong language.
It is. Dr. Bates argues that they, and I'm quoting from the source here, cause an increased cataract, detached retina, glaucoma, astigmatism, blurry eyesight, and other eyesight problems.
Wow. He's saying they cause these issues.
That's what the source claims, he argued. And he doesn't stop there. He claims that strong prescriptions increase this effect, creating this kind of cycle of dependency and actually worsening vision over time.
Okay.
His core argument, again, directly from the source, is incredibly bold. No glasses is the healthiest way to go.
No glasses at all.
That's the ideal, according to him. Now, if glasses are absolutely necessary, say for driving or maybe work where safety is a real concern,
right, practical situations,
he suggests using weaker and weaker lenses. Specifically, the source mentions 20/40 reduced lenses. That means lenses that would only correct your vision to a level where you see at 20 feet what a person with, quote, normal vision sees at 40 feet.
So intentionally undercorrecting?
Exactly. And even then, he advises using them only temporarily, only when needed, as your eyesight improves through his method.
So the implication of the stance is, well, it's profound. Wearing glasses, in his view, actually induces tension and hinders the natural relaxation of the whole visual system.
Right, trapping people.
Trapping individuals in this cycle of needing progressively stronger prescriptions rather than actually allowing their eyes to sort of heal themselves.
And this critique doesn't just stop at glasses, does it? It extends to eye surgeries as well.
That's right. The source includes warnings about the, quote, dangers of laser cornea eye surgery and also other cornea eye surgeries, claiming they also cause vision impairment.
So it's basically a complete rejection of the prevailing corrective paradigm of his time and even resonates with debates today.
Absolutely. A total departure.
And this wasn't just presented as a simple medical disagreement, was it? According to the source material, it actually spills over into this full-blown hidden truth narrative.
Ah, right, the suppression claims.
Yes, it explicitly claims that Dr. Bates's original magazines and books, in their unaltered form, were actually destroyed, hidden from the public by corrupt eye doctor surgeons, the optical industry, for many years after Dr. Bates's death.
That's a really significant accusation, framing the whole historical context of the Bates method as this deliberate struggle against powerful interests.
It really is.
And the alleged motivations behind this suppression, as stated in the source, are pretty stark. It says, most eye doctors prefer to sell eyeglasses, eye surgery, drugs, and hide natural eyesight improvement from their patients.
Implying a financial incentive, basically.
Exactly. A financial incentive to suppress alternative natural methods. The source goes even further, stating that honest doctors who tried to teach preserve the Bates method risked losing their medical license.
Yeah.
It paints this picture of a medical establishment actively working against a natural healing method, not just through, scientific disagreement, but through systemic obstruction and, well, professional intimidation.
It's quite a dramatic narrative. And the source does provide anecdotes of individuals who reportedly fought back against this alleged suppression.
Like Emily Bates.
Yes, it specifically mentions Emily A. Bates, Dr. Bates's wife, and other Bates teachers, and even, quote, a few honest eye doctors, like a Dr. Harold M. Peppard. They supposedly preserved Dr. Bates's original works by hiding them.
Really? Hiding them?
That's the claim.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a specific mention of a Dr. Monroe J. Hirsch preserving Dr. Bates's work in the University of California Optometry Library, and that other optometry and ophthalmology college libraries also preserve them, though it's, quote, not advertised.
So like a quiet, almost underground effort to safeguard these materials.
Seems like it, according to the story presented.
And this narrative of suppression is kind of reinforced by the legal battles that Bates method teachers reportedly faced, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The source highlights cases like Margaret Corbett, who was a prominent Bates teacher. She was apparently taken to court for practicing without a medical license.
And Aldous Huxley, too, right? The writer.
Exactly. The famous writer Aldous Huxley, author of Brave New World. Both of them, the source says, won the right to practice and teach and preserve the Bates method.
That's fascinating.
Huxley's story is particularly striking. He was reportedly saved from blindness, his eyesight restored by Margaret Corbett, teaching him how to apply the Bates method. And he subsequently wrote The Art of Seeing, which is a book detailing his own experience with the method.
Wow. There's even that specific anecdote in the source, isn't there, about countering the critics?
Oh yeah, the magnifier incident. Critics apparently attacked Huxley because he was reportedly seen using a magnifier in public, which they claimed disproved the method's effectiveness.
Right. How does the source explain that?
Well, the source attributes it to external factors. Things like nervousness, trying to see when under pressure, stress, people working against you hoping you will fail. All things that, according to Bates, can temporarily lower the eyesight.
Ah, so tying it back to strain.
Exactly. The source says this kind of temporary dip can lead to a lot of false eye exam results, unnecessary eyeglass prescriptions. So the implication is his temporary use of a magnifier wasn't a failure of the method itself, but rather a temporary visual dip caused by external temporary stress.
That's quite a defense. What's compelling here isn't just the medical claims, though, but the broader implications. This alleged historical suppression. What does that mean for public access to alternative treatments? And the motivations driving healthcare decisions.
Definitely food for thought. The source actually asserts that public demand, true freedom of the press on the internet, made it safe for Dr. Bates magazines, books to be returned to the public without fear of imprisonment, fines.
So suggesting a turning point facilitated by modern information access, allowing these previously supposedly hidden materials to reemerge.
Yeah. Which leads us to a practical point. Given this alleged history of suppression and potential alteration, the source provides a really clear warning about obtaining authentic materials today.
Right. They're quite specific.
Very. It strongly advises listeners to obtain ebooks, PDFs, videos, audiobooks training, pictures solely from our websites to ensure they are authentic. And it lists specific sites like cleareyesight-batesmethod.info, natural eyesight improvement-batesmethod.com, and a YouTube channel, Clark Clyde Knight, plus specific publishers.
Okay. And it also notes that some editions have added clarifications, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It mentions that extra directions clarifications have been added to Dr. Bates's and Emily's books and the Better Eyesight magazine in some modern editions.
And the reason for that?
Well, the source explains it by saying Dr. Bates is not here to teach us in person, so these editions are meant to provide full instructions for certain practices. Basically to make sure the reader doesn't have to, quote, search through 2,700 pages for entire description steps.
So an effort to make the method more accessible and understandable for people today, based on the original material.
Seems to be the intention, yeah. Okay, so after that really compelling introduction to the Bates method's philosophy and its controversial past, let's dive into the practical side. How does it actually work?
Right. The core of this method isn't just theoretical talk. It's built upon what Dr. Bates called the 7 truth exercises. And the source really emphasizes their profound interconnectedness. It states, when one of these 7 fundamentals is perfect, all are perfect.
Ah, so they all work together, like a system.
Exactly. It suggests a holistic system where improving one aspect naturally supports all the others. You can't really isolate them.
Makes sense. So what's the first truth? Where do we start?
Well, the first and arguably the most foundational truth, really the cornerstone of the whole thing, is rest or relaxation.
Back to relaxation again. It keeps coming up.
It's central. Dr. Bates believed that absolute relaxation of the mind and eyes isn't just helpful, it's the fundamental prerequisite for clear vision. Without it, any effort to see only perpetuates the strain he talked about.
Okay. And how do you achieve this deep relaxation? What's the technique?
The primary and probably the most widely known technique is called palming.
Palming. Right, I've heard of that.
It involves simply closing your eyes gently and then covering them completely with the palms of your hands. You might crisscross your fingers on your forehead. The key is ensuring absolutely no light whatsoever enters.
So, creating total darkness for your eyes.
Precisely. The goal is to achieve a sensation of profound, velvety blackness, like the blackest black you can imagine.
And how often should you do this?
The source recommends doing it many times during the day, at least 10 times, which sounds like a lot, but maybe short bursts. And also for longer periods, like half an hour or longer before going to sleep at night.
Okay.
You can even do it in the morning while in bed, maybe as a gentle way to start your day.
And what are the supposed benefits of this palming?
Oh, they're quite extensive, according to the source. It's said to not only induce sleep and reduce discomfort in the eyes, but also to cure pain and reduce general fatigue throughout the head and even the whole body. It's specifically highlighted as usually the best method of treatment for cataracts.
For cataracts, really?
That's the claim. It apparently brings a feeling of great relief in the eyes and head and even in the whole body. It's about creating this mental and visual blank slate, a true sense of repose for the visual system.
Interesting. Beyond palming, are there simpler ways?
Sure. The absolute simplest way to rest the eyes is just closing them for any length of time.
Makes sense.
The source suggests closing your eyes for, say, 15 minutes, but actively thinking of pleasant, agreeable thoughts during that time. If your vision doesn't temporarily improve afterward, it's seen as a clear sign that your mind wasn't truly at rest.
The mental component again.
Always. It also claims that a long enough closure can help correct that eyelid twitching we mentioned earlier, which is seen as a direct symptom of strain.
It's really interesting how he connects eye relaxation to overall body relaxation, too.
Definitely. The source explicitly states that relaxation of the neck, shoulders helps, emphasizing that tension in these areas can directly impact the visual system.
And there was that specific caution about chiropractic methods.
Yes, that's right. The source advises avoiding chiropractic, warning it has caused many injuries, including stroke. Now, that's a strong claim from this particular source.
Okay, so what does it recommend instead?
It recommends safe, natural massage on the muscles, good posture and movement, implying this broader, gentler, holistic approach to easing tension. Tension that can ultimately impact the eyes. It's another reminder that Bates saw the body as this completely interconnected whole.
All right. So relaxation is truth number one. What comes next?
Moving on from relaxation, the next two truths are really intricately linked. They truly define how Bates saw natural vision in action. They are central fixation and shifting.
Central fixation and shifting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's break those down. What's central fixation?
Central fixation, as defined by Dr. Bates, is the phenomenon where, in normal, relaxed vision, the eye sees one part of everything it looks at best. That best point corresponds to the foeva, the most sensitive, central part of the retina.
Right, where vision is sharpest.
Exactly. And all other parts of the visual field are seen progressively worse in proportion to their distance from that central point. Color, too, is apparently brightest and best only in that central field.
So the problem, according to Bates, is that people with imperfect sight, they do the opposite.
Pretty much. He says they invariably try to see a considerable part of its field of vision equally well at one time.
Like trying to see the whole forest instead of a single tree, clearly.
Exactly. Or trying to perfectly focus on the entire page of a book at once, instead of just one word or even part of a word at a time. This, he says, puts a great strain upon the eye and mind.
And staring. That's the enemy here.
Absolutely. Staring or trying to see a large area all at once is described as causing blur and even making letters disappear. The eyes, he believed, are simply not meant to fixate rigidly like that. They're meant to move constantly.
Which leads us naturally to shifting.
Precisely. Natural, healthy eyes are constantly moving. They perform these tiny, rapid, unconscious movements, never, ever fixating on a single point for more than a fraction of a second.
A fraction of a second. That's incredibly fast.
It is. And this rapid, continuous movement is what prevents staring and the associated strain. It allows for continuous relaxation, even while actively seeing.
So the practice involves consciously doing this.
Yes. Consciously imitating this natural movement. Shifting your gaze gently from small part to small part on an object, or maybe from letter to letter on a test card. This conscious shifting is presented as the quickest and easiest way to improve the sight because it cultivates relaxation and, as a result, clearer vision.
And the goal is for this to become automatic again.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is for this conscious shifting to become automatic on their own without thinking about the eyes, clarity of vision, just like natural breathing.
And how do you practice? Just move your eyes.
Well, interestingly, when practicing, you're advised to move the head and body with the eyes when shifting.
So it's not just darting your eyes around in their sockets.
No, that could create strain, too. It's about synchronized, easy movement. The source even provides images to illustrate shifting dot to dot on pictures, although it warns against imagining dots on real objects. The emphasis is always on natural, effortless visual movement. Think of your eyes like a gentle scanner, not a rigid camera lens.
Okay. Now, you mentioned there were two ways to practice central fixation, one preferred over the other.
Yes. The first method, which is described as less preferred, involves noticing that the peripheral field, the part of your vision you're not directly looking at, is seen worse or blurry.
Okay. Why is that less preferred?
While it might seem easier initially, especially if your vision is very unclear, to just notice the blur, the source warns it can actually lead to tension, strain, and something called eccentric fixation, which interferes with true normal eye movement. You're focusing on the lack of clarity,
Right.
essentially.
So what's the preferred way?
The preferred method is to consistently notice that the point you are directly regarded is seen best, clearest. Focus on the clarity, however small it is.
Focusing on the positive.
Kinda, yeah. This method, it explains, maintains relaxation and clarity. When your eyes are functioning normally, both your mental attention and your visual focus naturally reside in that central field. If an object is in your periphery and you want to see it clearly,
Turn your head and look at it directly.
exactly, you don't strain to see it sideways. You simply turn, move the eyes, face to look directly at the object, placing it in the central field and see it perfectly clear.
So the key takeaway is don't try to see everything equally well at once.
Precisely. Combining central and peripheral viewing, trying to see 2 points equally well, just causes tension, strain, and diffusion. Eyes are meant to be constantly in dynamic, easy motion, not rigidly fixed.
That makes perfect sense. It really is like trying to listen to two conversations at once and understanding neither. Okay, so moving on. Our next truth, swinging, sounds interesting. How does that relate to shifting?
It's directly related. Swinging is described as the apparent movement of stationary objects that is caused by the natural continuous shifting of the eyes.
Apparent movement, so things aren't actually moving.
No, not at all. It's a visual illusion created by relaxed eye movement, and crucially, the object appears to move in a direction contrary to the eye's movement.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine you're looking softly at a fence post. As your eyes naturally shift, even minutely, back and forth across it, the fence post might appear to subtly swing side to side in the opposite direction to your eye movements, like a very gentle visual pendulum.
Okay, I think I can picture that.
This subtle, continuous perceived movement is presented as a key indicator of relaxed, natural eye function. When this visual or even just mental swinging is successfully achieved, the source states that everything one thinks of appears to have a slight swing. This is called the universal swing.
The universal swing. Wow. Are there specific exercises for this?
Yes, there are several types of swings and practices detailed. The most well-known is probably the long swing, which is also referred to as the body sway.
How does that work?
You stand with your feet apart, and then you turn your shoulders, head, and eyes freely from one side to the other, lifting the opposite heel as you pivot, like a gentle twist.
Okay.
As you do this, stationary objects in the room, like windows or furniture, will appear to swing in the opposite direction to your body's movement. It can be quite pronounced.
And the benefits, besides vision?
Well, according to the source, it's said to not only improve vision, but also relieves or cures pain, discomfort, and fatigue. Remarkably, the source even claims it can promptly cure coughs, acute and chronic colds, and might even help with heart issues.
Colds and heart issues. From swaying.
That's what the source claims, again, linking eye health and relaxation to overall systemic well-being in a way that might seem surprising today.
Definitely surprising. What other swings are there?
There's the short swing, which is, as the name suggests, a shorter, more subtle movement. With practice, this tiny swing reportedly leads to more improvement in the clarity of vision. You can practice it on small letters, for instance, generating a very tiny apparent swing as your eyes naturally shift across them.
Okay.
Then there's the variable swing. This is described as the ability to imagine a near object having a longer, more pronounced swing than a more distant one.
Imagining the swing.
Yes. This technique is highlighted as being highly effective, even for severe conditions like conical cornea, that serious bulging of the cornea we mentioned, which was often considered incurable back then.
That sounds quite advanced.
It does. And finally, there's the circular swing. This involves moving your head and eyes together in a small circular or elliptical orbit while looking straight ahead at a fixed point, maybe your finger held out in front of you.
And the finger appears to move.
Yes, the finger appears to move in the opposite direction to your head and eye movement. This helps prevent staring and is also said to relieve pain and fatigue.
It's interesting how much focus there is on this perceived movement.
Absolutely. And it's also interesting to note that the source states that mental swinging can actually be easier at first than achieving the visual swing.
Practicing in your mind first.
Exactly. And cultivating that mental swing actively helps to develop the visual swing. It's even possible, the source says, to shift with your eyes closed and get as much benefit as with your eyes open, which again points to the mental component being just as vital, maybe even primary, compared to the physical eye movement itself.
The mind driving the relaxation and the clear sight. Okay. So our next two truths are memory and imagination. How do they fit into seeing clearly?
They're presented as being absolutely crucial and inextricably linked. The source states, imagination is closely allied to memory, for we can imagine only as well as we remember.
Okay, that makes sense.
And very importantly, both memory and imagination are considered impossible without perfect relaxation.
So straining doesn't just distort what you physically see. It also messes with what you can clearly remember or envision in your mind.
That's the implication. Straining clouds both the inner and outer vision.
So what role do memory and imagination play in the actual process of seeing?
It's fundamental, according to Bates. He believed that vision is largely a matter of imagination and memory. What we perceive isn't just raw data hitting the retina.
Right, the brain interprets it.
Exactly. It's interpreted by the mind based on past experiences, memories, and even what we expect or imagine we should see. Therefore, actively cultivating these faculties, memory and imagination, is said to improve both the mental interpretation of the images on the retina and also the clarity of the images themselves that the brain ultimately constructs.
Okay, so how do you practice this? How do you use memory and imagination for better sight?
The source offers specific practices, especially using letters. For memory, the idea is, with your eyes closed and covered, maybe while palming, you should remember a small black object perfectly, like a period punctuation mark or a tiny letter from fine print.
Remember it perfectly black.
Perfectly black, yes. And interestingly, it should appear to have a slight, almost imperceptible movement that's due to the unconscious shifting of your eyes even when closed. It should also have apparent whiter openings within the blackness.
Whiter openings.
Yeah, like the paper showing through. And then you consciously shift your attention on this mental image, just like you would on a real object. If you try to fix your attention rigidly on one part of the mental image, guess what happens?
It disappears.
Exactly. It disappears, just like a real object would if you stared. This proves, Bates argued, that the mental process mirrors the physical one.
Okay, that's memory.
Yep.
What about imagination?
For imagination, a typical practice involves looking at the largest letter on a test card, say the big E. You observe the blackest part of it, really notice its blackness. Then you mentally reduce its size in your imagination.
Shrink it down in your mind.
Right. Then you actively imagine a much smaller letter, perhaps one from the bottom line of the chart, occupying that clear black area you just created in your mind. And you imagine this tiny letter being even blacker than the largest letter.
Okay. And what's the effect of that?
This mental trick, this act of imagination, is said to immediately enable you to actually see smaller letters clearly with your physical eyes when you look back at the chart.
Wow. That's quite a claim.
Yeah.
Is there an example of using this with the Snellen chart?
Yes, the source gives a good illustrative example. Let's say you can currently see the R clearly on the 40 line of the Snellen chart.
Okay, 20/40 vision roughly.
Right. The instruction is, close your eyes, maybe palm for a moment, and then remember the R perfectly clearly in your mind. Shift your mental gaze from part to part on its imagined image, keeping it black and clear.
Right.
Then, upon opening your eyes, you should, according to the method, see the T directly below it on the 30 line, clearly.
Just by remembering the letter above it?
Yes. And then you repeat the process. Remember the T perfectly, then open your eyes to see the next line down, and so on. It emphasizes that memory and imagination aren't just passive thoughts. They are active tools that keep the image clear in the mind, which consequently keeps it clear to the physical eyes.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've covered relaxation, central fixation, shifting, swinging, memory, and imagination. What's the seventh truth, and are there other key practices?
Well, the seventh truth, listed in some summaries, basically reiterates the absolute centrality of relaxation. It's often stated as, rest or relaxation is perfect and can always be demonstrated, essentially tying everything back to that foundation.
Got it. So relaxation is key. What other practices are fundamental?
Besides palming and just closing the eyes, another absolutely crucial practice is blinking.
Blinking. Just blinking normally.
Well, yes, but understanding why it's important. Normal, healthy eyes blink frequently and unconsciously. Bates described it not just as a physiological necessity for moisture, but as a vital rest to the eyes.
A rest. How so?
because it's essential for preventing fatigue and improving vision, especially the source notes in cases of myopia or nearsightedness. He even called blinking another name for dodging.
Dodging what?
Dodging the harmful tendency to stare. Because, as the source explains, blinking causes the eyes to shift automatically. Shifting keeps the eyes relaxed. In movement, the eyesight clear.
Ah, so blinking naturally induces the shifting movement.
Exactly. It's like an active form of micro-rest and movement initiation built right into our physiology. Encouraging natural, frequent, easy blinking is key.
Okay. What else?
Another important practice mentioned is reading familiar letters.
Familiar letters. Why familiar?
The source explains the rationale like this. The eye always strains to see unfamiliar objects and is always relaxed by looking at familiar objects.
Interesting. So less mental effort involved.
Precisely. Therefore, reading small, familiar letters daily, maybe the same passage over and over at the greatest distance you can see them without any effort, is considered a profound rest to the eyes. And according to the source, this simple practice alone can sometimes even cure minor visual defects, especially in children.
Because the familiarity reduces both mental and visual strain, allowing the eyes to just work effortlessly.
That seems to be the idea.
All right. And finally, I imagine the eye chart itself plays a big role.
Oh, absolutely. Test card practice, using the standard Snellen chart, is a cornerstone of the Bates method, used not just for testing, but for active practice.
How so?
The source states quite emphatically, every home should have a test card, and it should be placed permanently on the wall in a good light.
Okay. And used how often?
Daily. The recommendation is that each household member should read the card every day. It's pitched as a quick daily routine taking only a minute to test, with maybe 5 minutes practice being a great help. It's meant to be a constant, gentle reminder and a tool for self-monitoring and improvement.
So how do you practice with it, not just test?
Well, you place yourself at a comfortable distance, maybe 10 feet, maybe 20, or even closer sometimes. You read as far down as you can without any effort or straining. You track your vision as that fraction, like 10-200, 10-100, 10-40, and so on. But the methods for practice involve actively using the techniques we've discussed. You shift your gaze gently across the letters, you blink frequently, you use memory, remember a clear letter with eyes closed, then open them to see the next smaller letter clearly. You practice across the lines and also at varying distances, close, middle, far, to encourage continuous relaxation, fluid movement, and crucially, to avoid any hint of strain or trying too hard.
Move to see the eye chart letters clear.
Exactly. That phrase appears. It involves sweeping, swaying slightly, shifting over the letters, never staring or forcing it. The mantra is, relax, 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 no effort. The letters will flash clear. You use the memory imagination trick with letters like R and T that we discussed earlier to progress down the lines. It's about moving easily to see the letters clear, not staring hard to make them clear.
Okay. One last practice you mentioned was flashing. What's that?
Flashing really underscores that core principle of avoiding effort at all costs. It involves taking incredibly brief, almost instantaneous glances at an object, literally a fraction of a second.
A quick peek.
Exactly, and you do this immediately after a period of rest, like palming or just having your eyes closed. The absolute key is to immediately close your eyes again before any habit of strain can possibly reassert itself.
Why do that?
It's described as a quick way to get temporary relaxation and sometimes even permanent improvement. It's particularly helpful, the source says, for those who tend to fall back into straining easily with other methods. It essentially teaches the eyes to grab an image quickly and then immediately release, preventing that detrimental fixation. So building on those fundamental practices, the Bates method also goes into some more specialized applications and makes these, well, surprisingly broad connections to overall well-being.
Okay, like what?
One really prominent and often discussed aspect is sun treatment, or as it's commonly called, sunning.
Sunning, getting sun in your eyes. That sounds potentially risky.
Well, Bates believed emphatically that the eyes need sunlight for perfect health, clear eyesight. He saw sunlight not as a danger, but as a vital natural nutrient for the visual system.
A nutrient.
Well, it's said to relax and rest the eyes, the mind, and the body. It improves energy, mood, sleep, and overall health. It was seen as fundamentally beneficial.
Okay, but how do you do it safely? The sun is powerful.
Absolutely. And there are a few methods described, with some important distinctions and cautions, especially from a modern perspective. The most common recommendation, and the one generally considered safest by modern Bates teachers referenced in the source, is closed-eye sunning.
So, sunning with your eyes shut.
Exactly. You simply face the sun with your eyes gently closed. Often, you'd incorporate the long swing or body sway at the same time. This helps distribute the light and warmth evenly across the closed lids and further induces relaxation.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. What about more direct sunning?
There is a more advanced and much more direct technique described in the original sources called sclera sunning.
Sclera, that's the white part of the eye, right?
Yes. The idea is, after your eyes are accustomed to the sun's gentle warmth through closed-eye sunning, you can, with your eyes open, carefully raise your upper eyelid and look slightly downward. The goal is to cover your pupil, the dark center, with your lower eyelid.
So the direct sunlight only hits the white part?
Precisely. You let the sun shine directly on the exposed sclera. You'd repeat this for each eye, then maybe for both together, always moving your eyes and face gently side to side to distribute the light and avoid focusing it on one spot.
And what's the purported benefit of shining sun on the white part?
This sclera sunning is claimed to, quote, bring to life the retina. It sells both the cones for color vision and the rods for low light vision, as well as the nerves and blood vessels in the eye. It's thought to lead to improved absorption of light and increased vitality within the eye tissues.
And the source mentions some pretty dramatic results from this.
It does. The source reports that sclera sunning has cured blindness from scar tissue on the cornea in some cases, and also helped glaucoma, cataracts, sometimes improving vision right back to normal. It's presented as a potent, natural way to stimulate and revitalize the ocular tissues.
Wow. Now, what about looking directly at the sun? Open-eyed sun gazing.
Right. That's also mentioned. Some teachers, and certainly some spiritual traditions, reportedly practice open-eyed sun gazing. However, and this is absolutely critical, the modern Bates teachers, as stated clearly in the source material we're using, advise extreme caution here.
Okay.
They generally recommend closed-eye sunning only for most individuals today. A key reason cited is the concern about ozone layer depletion, which might intensify harmful UV radiation compared to Bates' time.
So best to stick with eyes closed.
That's the strong advice. If, hypothetically, open-eyed sun gazing were attempted, the source emphasizes that the head and eyes must move continually with frequent, easy blinking to avoid any staring or overexposure. You absolutely cannot just stare at the sun.
Makes sense. Any other warnings about sunning?
Yes. The source warns that strong glare, especially initially, can cause temporary vision loss or discomfort, like seeing after images. It also advises good nutrition and avoiding certain drugs, sinus sprays, chemicals, and even some herbs or foods that might impair eye function or increase sun sensitivity. And the absolute golden rule, repeated often, never, ever shine direct light straight into the pupil, the central dark part, as this is the most sensitive area of the eye.
Okay. Very important cautions there. Moving on, what about fine print and small objects? How does that fit in?
This is another crucial practice, particularly for refining clarity at different distances and promoting fundamental eye health. It's not about straining to see tiny things, which would violate the core principle.
Right, no effort.
Instead, it's about gracefully shifting your gaze over the small details of objects like the intricate patterns on a flower petal, the texture of a rock, and also purposefully reading tiny or fine print daily, again, without strain.
And what are the benefits of doing this? Seems simple.
The benefits attributed to this seemingly simple practice are actually quite expensive in the source material. It's said to improve both close and distant eyesight.
How?
By enhancing central fixation, you have to look right at the tiny detail, encouraging precise, tiny shifting movements, and promoting overall relaxation because you can't strain and see tiny print. It reportedly helps to, quote, naturally returns an abnormal lengthened eye that causes myopia and an abnormal shortened eye that causes presbyopia to a normal round shape for clear eyesight.
So it claims to actually reshape the eyeball.
That's the claim that relaxed, proper use encourages the eye back towards its natural shape. Furthermore, it's said to improve convergence, how your eyes turn inward together to focus on near objects, and accommodation, the eye's ability to change focus from far to near. It's also claimed to improve circulation within the eye and the function of the lens and the ciliary muscle, which controls focusing.
Wow. Any long-term benefits mentioned?
Yes, the source suggests it can even prevent cataracts, astigmatism, and other eye problems, potentially eliminating the need for glasses entirely over time. And critically, one should practice this without wearing any glasses or sunglasses, as they would interfere with the natural eye movements and the light exposure needed.
Okay. Does the Bates method address specific diagnosed eye conditions?
It does. It offers alternative non-surgical approaches for several conditions. For strabismus, which is commonly known as crossed eyes or wandering eyes,
Uh,
Dr. Bates teaches multiple methods. First, the general Bates practices we've discussed, things like the long swing, body sway, central fixation, shifting, and overall relaxation are applied. The aim is to restore natural eye alignment simply by reducing the underlying strain.
and if that doesn't work, are there more specific techniques?
Yes, for more resistant cases of strabismus, Dr. Bates taught a truly unique method described as an advanced imaginative cure.
Imaginative cure, how does that work?
It's quite complex. It involves teaching the patient to actively imagine and consciously control the abnormal double images that are often seen by someone with strabismus.
Control the double vision.
Yes. For example, to correct an eye that consistently crosses in, the person might be taught to imagine seeing the image from that eye wandering out. Then, they learn to mentally control that imagined image, eventually aiming to imagine and then actually see single, normal images.
That sounds incredibly difficult and requires guidance, I imagine.
Absolutely. The source explicitly recommends that this specialized practice should ideally be done with a trained Bates method behavioral optometrist or ophthalmologist, as it requires careful, expert guidance. It's not something to just try casually from a book.
Good to know. Does it offer any reassurance for strabismus?
Yes. The source also includes the reassuring note that sometimes turned, crossed eyes often go straight on their own, and with relaxation, other natural activities, implying that for many people, the simpler foundational practices might be sufficient over time.
Okay. What about other conditions? You mentioned conical cornea earlier.
Right. Conical cornea, also known as keratoconus. This is highlighted in the source as a very serious disease where the cornea, the clear front part of the eye, bulges outward into a cone shape, causing severe visual distortion.
And Bates had a specific approach for that.
Yes, it was noted that the variable swing practice, the one involving imagining different swing lengths for near and far objects, was remarkably effective for this condition, even in cases considered incurable at the time. The source reports cases showing significant improvement, even restoration to normal vision, which Dr. Bates himself described as one of the most remarkable things.
Beyond these specific eye conditions, does the method draw broader connections to general well-being?
Oh, definitely. It consistently reinforces this holistic perspective. For instance, the Bates practices themselves, like the long swing or the active use of memory and imagination exercises, are not just presented as being for the eyes.
What else do they help?
They are said to relieve pain and fatigue throughout the entire body, including chronic headaches, simply by promoting deep systemic relaxation that starts with the eyes and mind.
Interesting. Any other related techniques mentioned?
Yes, the source also highlights the Alexander technique, developed by Frederick Matthias Alexander. Dr. Bates himself apparently endorsed it.
What's the Alexander technique about?
It focuses on teaching correct movement and posture body awareness, basically. The aim is to cure tension, particularly in the neck, head, and back, and address a variety of other health problems. It emphasizes a holistic approach to bodily alignment, which, by releasing unnecessary muscular tension, can indirectly but significantly influence the visual system and promote overall ease.
So posture affects vision too.
According to this integrated view, yes. And central to relaxation and overall vitality is something we often take completely for granted: breathing.
Breathing. How does that connect?
The source emphasizes the importance of natural abdominal diaphragm breathing, deep belly breathing for achieving profound relaxation, improving energy levels, and ensuring optimal oxygen flow to the head, the brain, and crucially to the eyes themselves.
So shallow chest breathing could hinder eye health.
That's the implication. It suggests a direct fundamental connection between deep, natural breathing and eye health. Proper respiration is seen as a key component of achieving and maintaining visual clarity.
And finally, diet.
Yes. The text makes a brief but important mention of diet nutrition. It also mentions avoiding certain drugs, chemicals, or foods that are believed to impair eye function. This just reinforces the comprehensive, holistic nature of the Bates method. It suggests that eye health isn't isolated. It's part of this larger interconnected system of physical and mental well-being, where external factors like diet definitely play a role.
Okay, we've really covered the core philosophy, the controversial claims, and the practical techniques of the Bates method now. Let's try to bring it to life a bit more with some real-world case studies and anecdotes. These are drawn directly from the source material, illustrating the kinds of transformations Dr. Bates and his practitioners were reporting back then.
Right. These are the compelling stories that would have appeared in his Better Eyesight magazines and books. They were used to demonstrate the method's efficacy, presumably.
Exactly. So where should we start?
Well, first up, there's a really compelling case presented by Dr. H.M. Peppard, who, as we mentioned, was a direct representative and associate of Dr. Bates. This involves a young man who was suffering from something called hypermetropic astigmatism.
Okay, hypermetropic means farsighted, and astigmatism is the irregular eye shape, right?
Precisely. And the source uses diopters to measure the lens power needed for correction, indicating how severe the refractive error was. So this young man's initial state, back in the fall when he sought help, was described as quite severe.
What were his symptoms?
He complained of persistent headaches, debilitating nervousness, chronic insomnia, and significant eye strain. He even felt, according to the report, as if he were going to have another nervous breakdown, which was a condition he'd suffered from previously.
Wow, so it was affecting his whole system. What about his eyes physically?
Physically, his eyes were described as bulging with a dry, glassy appearance and the upper lid markedly retracted. And his eyeballs were noted as being very hard to the touch, which Bates interpreted as a sign of extreme tension.
And the eye exam, what did it show?
The ophthalmic examination confirmed significant issues. He had a measurement of 1.25 diopters of hyperopia, farsightedness, combined with a really significant 2.50 diopters of astigmatism.
That's quite a lot of astigmatism.
It is. It means his eye wasn't perfectly spherical, causing blurry or distorted vision at pretty much all distances. His visual acuity or sharpness was measured at a poor 20/50 for both eyes.
Meaning he saw at 20 feet what someone with normal vision sees at 50 feet.
Correct. And he had apparently worn glasses, but they offered him little relief for his many symptoms.
So Dr. Peppard started treatment using the Bates method.
Yes, on August 4th, according to the report, he employed practices like palming for deep relaxation, swinging, blinking, and flashing with flashing, being described as especially beneficial for this particular patient. He also had him read diamond type, which is extremely fine print.
Okay. And what were the results?
The results, documented just 23 days later on August 27th, were described as truly remarkable in the source. His visual acuity dramatically improved to 20/15 for both eyes, specifically 20/15 in the right eye and 20/20 in the left.
Wait, 2015, that's better than standard 20/20 vision.
It is. It means he could see clearly at 20 feet what a person with standard normal vision could only see at 15 feet, so exceeding standard normal vision in one eye and reaching it perfectly in the other.
That's incredible in just over 3 weeks. What about the hyperopia and astigmatism?
According to the report, the hyperopia was not present anymore, completely resolved, and the astigmatism had decreased significantly down to just 1.00 diopter. Apparently, a few more treatments later relieved the remainder of the astigmatism, and his vision improved to 20/15 in each eye.
That's amazing. But what's equally impressive, maybe more so, is the connection to his overall health. Did the other symptoms improve too?
Yes, and that's a key part of the story, really emphasizing the Bates method's holistic claims. The source states that with the improvement in his vision, his general symptoms cleared up.
Like the headaches and nervousness.
Exactly. He was able to sleep soundly, became completely headache-free, and felt significantly less nervous. His eyes apparently felt comfortable, and his entire facial expression was changed from the relaxation around the eyes. They were no longer described as starey, but as bright and moist, and the blinking frequent and easy.
Wow. And was there any long-term follow-up?
Yes, the report mentions a follow-up 6 months later, which stated unequivocally that his eyes were in perfect condition, and importantly, he no longer feared a nervous breakdown. It paints this picture of a complete, integrated recovery, not just fixing the eyes in isolation.
That's a very powerful anecdote. What's next?
Our next anecdote from the source concerns a Mrs. Gordon's sick headaches and vision.
Okay. What was her situation?
The source describes her as suffering from persistent, debilitating sick headaches and also poor vision. Like the previous case, these issues had been unresponsive to prior treatments, including the use of glasses. She was apparently quite desperate for relief.
And she tried the Bates method.
Yes, after hearing about Dr. Bates's method, she visited a Dr. Arno, who was another practitioner using the Bates approach.
And how did she fare? Was her progress quick too?
Equally swift and compelling, according to the account. The source states that at the end of 3 weeks, she was amazed to discover that she could not only leave off her glasses without the least discomfort, but her headaches had disappeared entirely.
Headache's gone too, just like the young man.
Yes. And she regained the ability to sew, read, thread needles, and continue her work of teaching with ease, daily tasks that had previously been difficult or impossible for her.
Did she offer any insights herself?
Yes, Mrs. Gordon herself apparently provided an insightful observation. She noted that if an adult like herself could be cured so quickly, then children ought to make rapid progress and be cured permanently in less time, given their more flexible visual systems and perhaps less ingrained habits of strain.
Makes sense. Okay, any other standout cases?
Yes, there's the particularly striking case of the school teacher with conical cornea.
Ah, conical cornea again. That's the bulging cornea condition, right? Described as very serious.
Exactly. The source calls it a very serious disease of the front part of the eye, where the cornea bulges outward into that cone shape, severely distorting vision. This patient's initial vision was extremely poor, measured at just 120 of the normal. That's a profound level of visual impairment.
So what treatment did she receive? Was it the variable swing again?
It seems likely related to swinging. The source notes she primarily benefited very much from the variable swing technique we discussed earlier.
And the results for such a serious condition?
Quite profound, according to the report. Her vision improved significantly to 12, with flashes of normal sight occasionally. Now, 12 is still impaired, but the source notes this was a great deal better than the vision she obtained with her glasses.
Okay, so better than glasses, but still not normal.
Wait, there's more. The most notable claim is that eventually the conical cornea disappeared from both eyes and her vision became normal.
The conical cornea disappeared, and vision became normal.
That's what the source reports. Dr. Bates himself described this specific case as one of the most remarkable things I have seen in years. I know of no other treatment that has ever brought about so great a benefit in so bad a case, indicating his own personal astonishment at the outcome for what was considered an incurable condition by many.
That is truly remarkable, if accurate. Okay, one more.
Finally, there's a short but intriguing account of the blind man.
A blind man. What was his situation?
The source describes him simply as a man who was so ill that he kept to his bed, and he was also completely blind.
And the treatment? What could be done?
His treatment involved a very simple yet profound application of Bates' core principles. His bed was apparently strategically placed so the sun could shine on his closed eyes, sunning, essentially. And he also palmed faithfully and swung a chart that was given to him, emphasizing consistency in these basic relaxation and movement practices, even while bedridden and blind.
And was there any progress?
The progress was described as gradual but observable. The report states, little by little his eyes came forward, which might suggest a physical change in their appearance, perhaps less sunken or strained. Reports noted he was gradually looking better, and his eyes seemed to improve over a period of 2 to 3 months. It indicates a perceived return of some function, or at least vitality, to the eyes.
Interesting. Does this anecdote include anything else?
Yes, it also includes a telling social interaction that highlights the skepticism the method faced. A visiting nurse apparently called the method bunk, just outright dismissing it.
Not surprising given the claims.
Right. But an assistant, identified as Edith, challenged her directly. She informed the nurse it was not bunk, and that if she returned in a few months, she would find out for herself. This little exchange really underscores the skepticism and active opposition the method encountered, even while these dramatic anecdotal improvements were being reported by its proponents.
#outro.
And, well, there you have it. A pretty comprehensive deep dive into the world of the Bates method for natural vision improvement, pulling directly from those original sources.
Yeah, we've really unpacked quite a bit.
We really have. We've explored its radical core philosophy. That conscious effort actually lowers vision, and true relaxation improves it. And we looked at the controversial claims it makes against conventional eyeglasses, contact lenses, and even eye surgeries.
Right, all within that unique narrative of historical suppression and hidden truths that the source material presents.
Definitely. And we also thoroughly broke down those 7 truths of normal sight, didn't we? From the absolute foundational importance of palming and achieving comprehensive relaxation,
to the dynamic processes of central fixation and that constant, easy shifting. Then there was the perceived movement of swinging, and the vital, really active roles assigned to memory and imagination.
And we touched on the other practical techniques too, like the importance of natural blinking, the benefit of reading familiar letters, and that diligent daily test card practice. plus the more specialized applications like sunning, with all its necessary cautions, and how the method aimed to address specific conditions like strabismus and conical cornea.
So by extracting all these core principles and the practical applications directly from Dr. Bates' original, often unedited works, we hope that you've gained a truly comprehensive understanding of this method. A method that really does challenge some deeply ingrained assumptions about eyesight and maybe even the very nature of health itself.
It certainly encourages a completely different way of thinking about vision, doesn't it? One that emphasizes the body's own innate capacity for self-correction and healing, if it's allowed to function naturally, without that constant strain Bates talked about.
It really does. So wrapping up, what does this all mean, perhaps, for how we approach health challenges more generally? Is there maybe a broader lesson here about the potential power of natural methods and perhaps the importance of questioning established norms, especially when those norms might just maybe inadvertently perpetuate a problem they claim to solve?
That's a great question to ponder. And it raises another one for me. If the sustained effort of consciously trying to see can paradoxically obscure vision, as Bates argued, might there be other areas in our lives, beyond eyesight, where conscious trying or forcing things actually prevents a more natural, effortless clarity from emerging?
That really makes you consider where else strain might be hindering natural function across your well-being, doesn't it? It definitely prompts a reconsideration of where true solutions might lie. Something to think about.